So hello everyone. So today we have number 27. I'm counting the seminars we have. We have Matteo Bruno, that is from Sony CSL Rome. So thanks for accepting our invitation for this talk. As usual, we have first talk about 20 minutes about how compact should my city be, about the 15 minutes city, blah, 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 interesting, you'll see. And then the discussion is about should I stay or should I go? So then Matteo, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Gabriele, and thanks to you all for inviting me. And it's a pleasure to be here. And let me share my presentation. I guess you can see now, yes. Right?
Perfect.
Okay, good. Let me introduce myself. I am Matteo Bruno. I work at Sony Computer Science Laboratories in Rome. I'm a researcher there, and I study cities, sustainable cities, and I will tell you more about it. So this talk will be about some of our research about city compactness and accessibility in cities, and especially about the concept of 50-minute cities. But I will try to also ignite some curiosity about city science and the study of cities as complex systems. So let me go ahead and talk a little bit about the laboratory, Sony CSL, even because it will be relevant for the discussion after this. So Sony CSL is a part of Sony. Yes, it is, but it's not very well known as a part of Sony, in a sense that it's not like you say Sony CSL and people say, I know that part of Sony. It's like Sony Entertainment or Sony, I don't know, Sony PlayStation, something like that. So we are a non-profit part of Sony, a research laboratory. So we cannot, we make pure research inside of Sony. And we are a part of the gigantic universe of Sony subsidiaries. So if you go to Wikipedia and open the page, you'll see that these are all the list of sub-companies of Sony. So we are among them. But as I said, we are a pure research center. So we do kind of research like in academia. And there are 4 laboratories in the world right now. So there are 2 in Japan, which are Tokyo and Kyoto, and 2 in Europe, Paris and Rome. And the one in Rome, where I work, is inside the Centro Ricerche Enrico Fermi, which is a physics research center that is where Enrico Fermi, the Italian Nobel Prize in Physics, studied. And Sony CSL Rome has 3 research lines. So one is sustainable cities, which is the one in which I work. And we study cities. We do a lot of different works, and I'll talk about it during the rest of the talk. Then there is Infosphere, which that studies social networks, misinformation, and so on. And augmented creativity, which is a 3rd research line that studies AI, both from a theoretical point of view, but also an applied point of view, especially the interplay between human and AI, so arts and science. How can AI enhance arts and humans? So in the sustainable cities part, the research line, there are 3 of us: Victor Loreto, who's the director, Igor Melo, which some of us may know, and me. But we are actually many more working on these topics. because we have several collaborations and we have some PhD students working with us, especially from Sapienza. And we are always looking for new collaborations, even because the laboratory is 2 years old. So it's we are trying to strengthen our collaboration network. We look at the city from different perspectives, from different point of view. So we have several research lines. So, for example, we see the city from a microscopic point of view. So, what are the processes that happen also at a super local scale, like for example, what happens in a crossroad. We also have some collaboration with Sony in this part because they have, like, for example, smart cameras, and we also try to understand the movements of humans also in a microscopic scale. Then most of our research focuses on a mesoscopic scale. So we study mobility and accessibility in cities. And also we have a research line about cities as macroscopic agents, so socioeconomic agents that evolve over time. So let me start discussing cities. I've been working with cities for 2 years, and I've seen that in the community, but in general, actually, in the public opinion and in the media, now there is a lot of focus of the problem of cities, right? Like, it seems that cities are some kind of bad places in general that need a solution, and we need to search for the ingredients to make a city good and to search for the perfect city. Always you have the city rankings, ranking cities, the best cities to live, blah, blah, blah. And so we try to understand what are the drivers of this. But this is not at all a new concept. And actually, urbanists have studied this for centuries. So, for example, let me give you a couple of references. So, at the end of the 19th century, there is this concept of the garden city, which is still used nowadays, this name, but with a totally different meaning, and it's always used in a positive way, right? Because it seems very appealing, like a city, but with a garden, so it's definitely a place where I want to live. But actually, the original concept of garden city is something a bit dystopic, because you have these, you can see here in these maps, that you have a center of the city in which all the activity is made, and then you have lots of gardens and lots of suburban sprawl, similar to what are US cities right now, and every and the city is immutable with 30,000 people, and there is a network of cities and satellite cities and central cities, and it's a huge controlling environment. Of course, it's like the end of the 19th century, but people still use it like in a completely different way. Like it's a good concept, no? Like we create a garden city. And there is another example. It's this kind of city brought by Le Corbusier, 1930. So the Radiant City, Ville Radieuse, and again another incredible, appealing name. But even this is very dystopic. Like this supposes that there are people living in skyscrapers this time, so huge density of people inside the buildings in a residential area. And then services are delocalized and jobs and works put somewhere else. And there are huge parts below the residence areas with cars as the main way to move around the city. Actually, this concept was used for building cities like Brasilia or also a lot of social housing in not social housing, how to say, housing in Europe that was built in this period, that was actually built as popular houses for to give to poor people, but it was like meant in a good way, but it actually backfired a lot because it increased segregation of economic conditions and so on. So inside of all these, I also want to bring a good example of something that is really amazing. A book. It's called The Death and Life of Great American Cities by Jane Jacobs. That was written more than 60 years ago, just to give you a glimpse of how not new is all that we are saying right now, and a lot of topics that we are discussing right now about cities. So Jane Jacobs was just a journalist. Actually, she was not an urbanist or scientist, but she wrote this amazing critique to modern at the time urbanism, saying that stating a lot of concepts that she found horrible in the way that cities were thought to be working well, and in the process, she also says some elements that she believed that were good for the cities. So, for example, she says that a city has to be a diverse environment to avoid a series of problems. And she mentioned 4 elements for a good city to work in such a way. And she says, for example, that so in every neighborhood, there must be mixed uses of buildings and buildings that vary in age and condition and in the socioeconomic status of the inhabitants of the neighborhoods had to be different. Blocks must be short, and there has to be a sufficiently dense concentration of people. Because it can aggregate opportunities, economic activities, and foster innovation and so on. All things that we are now validating with data, and we are now talking about a lot in this field. But she said this 60 years ago, and she called actually cities as complex systems, even if she wasn't a scientist, and she advocated for the use of data in urbanism. And as she said, urbanism is not a science right now because we cannot actually experiment with cities, not in a fast way, at least. So yeah, what we are left with right now is this concept of the 50-minute city. This is one of the most recent trends in urban planning. And let's analyze it and see exactly what it is. What is its definition? The definition of 50-minute city. So a city is a 50-minute city if everyone in the city can access services within a 50-minute bike or walk from where they live. So basically, this states that if you are an agent, a person inside a city, you should be able to access basic services around you with ease without needing to take a car or travel far. And I don't see anything undesirable about this definition, but this concept has been used in multiple ways and interpreted in different ways that are not exactly how it's supposed to be interpreted. For example, if you look at this image that, of course, I generated with ChatGPT. Which one of these two parts of the image looks more appealing? So the right one is supposed to be like the most amazing place to live, right? But the left one is actually the more 15-minute city, because in the right one there are no services. So it's not even if people are all happy to walk and bike. There are only gardens and buildings and residential areas, which is more like a radiant city. So the left one would be more close to a 50-minute city. So of course, we're talking about something that has to be is an ingredient for a good city. It's not like a holistic solution for all the problems of cities. Because in the left one, of course, you have pollution, you have cars, and so on. So this concept is always misinterpreted in various ways. One of them is they come to you and they say, 15 minutes, but it's impossible. I will not be able to go from one side of Rome, where I live, to the other in 15 minutes. But it's not about this at all. It's not about being closed in your neighborhood and not being able to go out of your 15-minute far opportunities. And similarly, you are not forced to go to the closer restaurants. You don't have to go within your 50-minute neighborhood. You just have the possibility of doing it. And this concept is not very hard to realize in cities. If you, I will later look at the statistics with you and the analysis that we do, and we see that many cities in many areas of the cities already have this concept, but people are a bit pessimistic many times about because they mix this concept with a lot of other issues that are present in various areas of the cities. And this is, as we saw, not a new concept, because this is like has been debated density of services and mixed use for 60 years at least. So what we do in this regard, we have a platform called What If Machine that we in which we put our analysis on cities. You can actually access it because it's open online. So if you go to we have a part of it that is for exploring the 50-minute city. So exploring how close are services in the city, and a part of it that is usable to explore how fast is public transportation in cities. So how do we build the platform of the 50-minute city? So we start from the exact definition. So we if you have the data about the services that are in a city, you can see how long does it take to access them, right? So in a nutshell, we have POIs that are points of interest data from OpenStreetMap, which is an open source data set, which is a bit like Google Maps. So you have all kinds of services. City borders are easy to find from different sources, and there is a whole debate on what is the actual definition of a city. But we just take official sources. Population data is also open. There is a huge project that is very nice about from WordPop that is provides a grid of 100 meters times 100 meters, a squared grid of population density of all over the world. Then we build a grid of the cities, an hexagonal grid as you see here. And we basically, for each hexagon in this grid, we see how far our services are the closest services. And then we take the average of the accessibility times to the first 20 services of each category, like groceries or restaurants or schools and so on. And so we are able to map all cities, and we do it for biking and for walking. So this is the platform as it shows up, and we mapped all of the world, almost 10,000 cities, a bit more than 10,000. So you can click on a city and explore it. You can explore it, and now we're working also on the possibility to create scenarios. Actually, we do it in the background for suggestions for policymakers to validating possible changes to the structure of the city, like adding services or implementing bike lanes and so on. Okay, so this is the online platform that we use for showing it, like for to try to have an impact, also communicating with policymakers and to the public. But we also do research with these pipelines. So what you can do once you compute these kind of metrics. So one simple byproduct of all this analysis, we have a workability network that comes out of this. So you can see that workability in cities changes a lot. There are people studying this more deeply. And also another thing that you see is that the quantity of services per capita, so per 1,000 people here, to interpret better, is very inhomogeneous in cities. And you can see that the map of accessibility of Rome in blue are the areas within a 50-minute accessibility, and in red the areas that are more empty with services. Is very variegated and not homogeneous. So we try to we ask ourselves how to investigate this inequality of accessibility. So for instance, you can see that if you take these accessibility times and you do a cumulative population plot in which you see where people actually live, the cities are actually hugely different. So you see super compact cities like Paris or Barcelona that are very accessible, and cities like Atlanta, of course, US cities are very sprawl. So we define an average of the city, so just the average accessibility time of the population and the percentage of population with accessibility within a 50-minute accessibility in the city. And we can plot this on a scatter plot, and we can see that cities are these two quantities are correlated. So if the average is lower, then the quantity of people within a 50-minute accessibility is higher. And the inequality of this index throughout the city is actually increasing on this x-axis, meaning that if you have a certain percentage of people within 50 minutes, but your average becomes greater, it means that some people are very good, have a very good accessibility, while some people have a very bad accessibility. So we also said, okay, so can we make these cities more equal somehow? So we actually have an algorithm, implemented an algorithm for redistributing the POIs equally, in the sense that we distribute them according to the needs of the population, so according to the quantity of residents in the areas of the city. And this is the result. So the maps that you've seen before of the quantity of POIs per capita, so services per 1,000 people, becomes much more homogeneous if you redistribute the services in a city like this. And we do this for a lot of cities, and we keep track of the percentage of services that has to be relocated to obtain this equality. And some cities are actually very close to this equality of the algorithm, and some cities are very far. And again, you can see that super compact European cities have very close to this optimal target, and some sprawl cities like US ones are very far from this concept. And you can see how accessibility also changes with this reorganization of services. So, for instance, you can see that the center stays very good with a very good accessibility. This is Rome again. And the periphery improves a lot. Yes, again, you can see here the difference in accessibility. So the center becomes slightly worse and the peripheries improve a lot. The blue parts are the ones in the accessibility improves. And you can see that from the plot of the city average scores, you can see that most cities benefit from this reorganization in the accessibility time. We can do more with this algorithm. So instead of keeping the number of services constant and equal to the one observed in the city, we can simulate adding POIs to the city and see when the cities actually become 50-minute cities. Okay, so if you keep on adding services optimally, like equally, at a certain point, the city will become on average a 50-minute city on the left plot, or on the right plot, it will become 15 minutes for 90% of the population. So here we take this number, how many services you need per capita to get to a 50-minute city for 90% of the population. And if we look at this quantity of POIs per 1,000 people, we see again huge differences. And these are depending only on the population distribution of the city and represent how easy it is for the city to become a 50-minute city. So you can see super dense cities like Mumbai and Bogota that are need a very low quantity of services per 1,000 people, while some cities, again, the US cities stand out as need a quantity of services per 1,000 people that is unsustainable economically. So if they want to become 50-minute cities, they have to become denser, and there's no way to overcome this by relocating the POIs. Okay, so now we also want to go a bit further, and just to give you some discussion food for thought. Of course, you cannot move the Coliseum. You cannot move every kind of services that are in a city, and people will still want to move. So people will want to travel in the city. They will want to reach a lot of opportunities, and that's why they get mad if you talk to them about removing cars in most cities. It's impossible to create a 50-minute city in which people will not want to travel far anyway, because they want to be able to reach out of opportunities. So public transportation has to be reinforced anyway. Cities exist as aggregator of opportunities. So we cannot pretend that this is not part of the human nature. Otherwise, if we just had to be in a 50-minute neighborhood, we could live in a village and it would be the same. So summing up, I think that in general, the 50-minute concept is a positive concept, and it's not, even if it's not universal, so it's not the solution to everything, and cities may be terrible places to live, even if they are really 50-minute cities. And blah, 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 blah. Okay, so yes, we can make them most cities 50-minute, but we need to improve the peripheries, and we need to aim for this. Some cities cannot do that. They have to become denser if they want to realize something like this. And solutions have to be tailored for the single cases. So there are actually constraints for the cities that are important to take care of. And we should not forget that every city is a complex system that has different constraints. So thank you a lot. These are some references and a picture of the laboratory. We might have some 1 year research position at Sapienza. So if you are interested in working with us, please reach me, and or if you know someone that could be interested in working in these topics, please send me a message. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matteo. Very good, very interesting. Since we don't have too much time, actually, maybe you could talk a bit about the next discussion part, and then we leave like free discussion. Everyone who wants to ask something, either from the first part, the discussion points that you already started to show, and the next ones, it would be great.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I was a bit.
No, it was super interesting. So don't.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to share a bit also my story. I mean, it's not like a particularly interesting story somehow, but I think that it's a common path, because when I finished the PhD, even if it was a nice PhD, I did my PhD at IMT in Lucca. I had a good time, nice experience, and so on. I was not convinced by keeping working in academia. It's not like I don't like research. I love research. But sometimes, we have some some other things that we aim for, right? So I tell them, someone gets ill in academia, and they come up with crazy ideas, like having a stable position, competitive salary, being able to live on your own when you are 30 or more than 30, have an impact. Sometimes we can have like a sense of loss of meaning in what we do, and go out of some toxic environment in which you have to publish or perish. You are judged for silly things, or maybe not what you think is important, and maybe have a healthy and balanced life work balance. This is common, of course. Like a lot of us are in the same place when we finish. I was lucky enough that when I finished, I sent a lot of applications. I also did. I thought about what I wanted to do. I really wanted to find an interesting project in general. I didn't care about staying in academia. I don't want to become a professor necessarily. And then I found this job actually on LinkedIn, even if I could have known the Sony laboratories, because I had people which I was working with that knew them. And I said, okay, cool. Sony has a lab that also does research, so let's try. And then I ended up like this. But I had like many interviews actually when I was finishing my PhD, and I suggest you to do that, because sometimes we can actually have a wrong vision of academia or company, right? We think like we see only the bad things like of academia, and we only see the good things that we think about going to a company. I mean, if you take some interviews, you see that it's not always the case, no? Like many places in companies tell you that they do research, but they actually just want to attract people that have a mind for doing research, so they know that researchers are good thinkers in general, so they want to attract them, and actually they don't. So if you take a look at also at the other side of these of how you see things, it's not all that bad to be in academia, because you can actually work on things you like and you can be rewarded. You have flexible hours compared to a company, even if you sometimes think or need to work in the weekend. But this can happen also in a company. I mean, it's possible that you get a toxic environment in a company as much as academia. Of course, some privileges of the company, like there are some problems of academia that are always the same. But we should not feel obliged to stay where we are. So I think that the most important thing is to know what we want, and to try to be always in the to rationalize things, no? Because you have to keep thinking that even if you go to a company, you might find another toxic environment. And if you have a toxic environment in your laboratory in academia, you're not obliged to stay in it. You can go out of it. If your motivation is low in what you're doing right now, it means that maybe you can change subject, you can explore different things, you can start new collaborations. You have to take care of yourself somehow, but this is true in life. In academia is especially felt because you are responsible for yourself. No, in a company, you have a manager, and if the project goes to doesn't succeed, in the end, it's the responsibilities of the manager. But in life, it's also yours. So you're gonna feel pressure also in a company. Yeah, I don't want to sound a bit, too optimistic about it, but because shit happens, and you can end up in a bad situation, and you can feel a bit, in a hole, trapped. But sometimes you have to remind yourself that you can take the wrong path and you can change afterwards. And so I would like to be optimistic and not sound too presumptuous. I hope I did convey the message.
Yes, thank you. So I guess it's time for discussion. If you have comments or questions, just unmute yourself, or you can write in the chat. There's many things to discuss. Anlin, go ahead. You were the first one.
Hello, thank you for the talk, and this is very interesting. I have two questions. One is related to the first part, and the other one related to the second part. So for this, the first part, so basically everything is established on this concept of 15-minute city, like all this analysis, or how we want to optimize it. So is there any let's say, or theory or support to say this 15-minute city is the good or the best or the optimal way of how to form a city? Because there could be some other cases. For example, in the city in the US, in all the comparison, they are not very good in this below this criteria. But for example, they have the road network is stronger than this public transport. So if you have a car, then you may be able to achieve something like a 50 minutes, not on foot, not on bike, but on car. So maybe there's a different structure that can achieve the similar result. So yeah, I'm curious, is there any reason to believe that the 50-minute is the optimal one?
Okay, so there is no actual validation of the 50-minute city concept like in its formulation, but there is like a lot of studies on density and the positive impact of city density and city diversity, that are concepts that of course come naturally if you follow the definition of 50-minute city. So, for example, dense areas are less prone to criminality or have higher technological rates of technological innovation, economic development, and so on. Of course, I mean, these things are always, not always, but often like tips. They are not like proven. They are correlation and stuff like that. But I think that and regarding cars and American cities, like this, it's a different type of organization, you know. But the concept of the 50-minute city is also about walking and biking. Of course, I didn't talk about this much, but to reduce pollution and by transportation. So yeah, cars, you can think about a different system in which you use cars and you access services in 50 minutes, and this is much more common. It's what happened in the 20th century. We're building for this aim.
Okay, thanks. And my second question related to your second part is actually quite general, because we know that there are some typical problems in academia and some typical issues in companies. So what's in the middle is maybe what you're doing now. You're doing research in a company, and there might be some other places like Microsoft or Google or some, you know, the company doing this. So would you say this is in general a better choice than the university or in a pure commercial company? Or would you comment this type of mixture?
Yeah. So I think these are in general cool places. If you find places that are like have both sides, but there is a whole spectrum of this, no? Because you can go from full companies or only profit oriented to a full research that is like academia, and then in the middle you can find all of anything like people that say that they do research in companies, but they actually don't care, and it's like all research is just if it's oriented to some kind of profit, and you get like all directions for your research, so you're not free to do your own research and so on. And you get places like us. I mean, I feel very lucky in this, but I'm very free to explore and do some kinds of research if I feel like it. So our place is kind of special. And of course, there is in between places. If your research topic is exactly about what Google unit is trying to do, then it's a perfect solution for you. Another drawback of being in this kind of environments is that sometimes it's bad for your academic career. So right now I'm a researcher. I'm not doing years of postdoc or having experience in academia that sometimes is required for some positions here in Italy, for example. So if you really wish to be, full in academia, you have also to face this drawback. But of course, like, the pros for me outweigh the cons.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sandro?
Thank you.
All right. Super cool talk, Matteo. I wanted to ask, I mean, I totally buy the idea of the 15-minute city. Actually, I live in one by bike, so it's amazing. I wanted to ask you, have you looked into the like non-expected effects, like increase in segregation in cities by 15-minute stuff? Because you kind of incentivize people to stay local, right? Once you have all the resources distributed in some specific area.
Yeah, this is a common critique that is made with the 15-minute city, like the fact that having all accessible and giving people the freedom not to travel is a way to increase segregation. It's a bit hard to examine this because, as I said, cities are complex. So, and many times we don't have so much historical data about the evolution of accessibility. So you don't know if a place that has become more 15-minute has increased in segregation or not, and you have to account for a lot of different factors that also happen in the same period. So sometimes you are just measuring noise. I think that we, as I said, we don't have to disregard the features of the single cities. Like if you make a place that is geographically segregated and segregated by infrastructure and transportation, you make it 15 minutes, then maybe this can become a segregated place. If you connect it well anyway, and the city is like diverse and connected, then I think that there will be no problem, but we didn't look at it, no.
Nice. Silvia, you raise your hand.
Yes. I wanted to ask about like if there are like permanent position as in Sony or in like this hybrid solution, because sometimes the goal for like going for some postdocs and trying to arrive at some point in career in academia is to get a permanent position, which is something that you can obtain really not really easily, but is not a possible outcome of an industry job. So I was wondering if also in a Sony environment you can have like a permanent position, something more stable.
Yeah, I am permanent. So because
okay.
I mean, this is kind of stupid because like I don't know why. I don't know exactly the details, but in the university in Italy, you don't have the constraint of hiring people permanently, but you have it if you're a company. So in Italy, after 2 years, you have to either let someone go or hire them. And this was the case for me. So after you, yes.
Is it possible to do some like, I don't know, career in the sense like raise your salary or stuff like that?
Yeah, this is a bit tricky. Like above me, I mean, I am associate researcher. That there is the grade of full researcher, but it's just because the company is structured like this. And then there is the manager. So there's not much room for improvement. Of course, I can ask for raises, but there is no. And of course, again, there is like the ones that are given by law.
Yeah,
but there is not much room for that. Like if I
There's
stay in academia,
not so much hierarchy.
Sorry?
Not so many roles above you.
Yeah, it can be different in other places. Like if you go to Google, I imagine that can be like a manager of the single unit, and then the manager of a bigger thing, and then I don't know. But for us, it's not. It's like this. It's much more agile in a way. Like I only have to ask Victor about things. Yeah, but yes, there is this drawback.
Nice. Thanks.
So I had another question. So because you said, I have everything I need here in Sony, it's great, I love it. But what is better for you in Sony that is not in academia? And I was thinking also while you were talking other stuff. So, for example, does it change being in Sony or somewhere like this about the impact, the direct impact in policy making, and like not just research for research, which is important, but you know what I mean. Like, does it change this? But I guess there are two different questions, but you got the idea. I hope.
Yeah. So yeah, for the first question, okay, let's start from the second question. So no, but I am a bit tired, so
No worries.
yeah. So for me, the things that are better, I will tell you like explicitly. For me, it's permanent position and higher salary. And this is like because like we have a bit more money than an average university, but it's not like we are Sony. We have infinite money or something like that. But the salaries are a bit more competitive, and the positions are permanent, and this is huge. Like you have benefits, like also like I always try to not work in the weekends and take vacations. I always done this also in the PhD, and now actually HR encourages me to do that. So and it's nice. It's not like I get pushed to do that. Sorry, what was the other question?
The other is about if there is differences being in academia or in this case Sony, about the impact that you can have outside of academia. So
Yes.
in particular, yes. Or because maybe you could do the same things as a postdoc, but would it be the same? Would it really be the same or not? So
I could do the same things as a postdoc. Sometimes they give you more credits, no? If you go to speak to policymakers and you say, we are from Sony, it's not like I am from Roma 3. I don't know, like I love Roma 3, Silvia, I also studied in Roma 3. But they still like do not think that you are what you say, no? And just because I say I am Sony, and people think, these guys must have the solutions, and like then the team is me, Igor, and Vittorio, which would be the same if we were in Sapienza. So, but they give you a bit more credit for this. It's a bit harder to prove that we are non-profit and we don't want to sell them anything. This is harder to do. But I think that in general, again, it's better. The pros are higher, are more.
nice. Actually, it's funny when you were talking about should I stay or should I go, because right now I'm in between, exactly. I am a postdoc in CNRS in academia in Paris, but I work in Sony with you in the same room. But I'm talking about for the others that don't know, but so I have 2 years postdoc, but I work in Sony basically, and so I can choose later. Sandro, one last question. Go ahead.
All right. I wanted to ask you, how is it? Of course, I mean, you need to kind of align your research interest with the the company. But I was just wondering, how much freedom do you have to kind of go around?
I don't know exactly why we exist in Sony in some way. So this is recorded. So let me phrase this in a good way. No, so because we are very free to do what we do. Sony has our intellectual property. So if we have a patent or something, they get the credit for it. So I think that for them is like a high risk, high return investment. If some of us someday invent the new solutions to everything, they have it, and also a return of image that they have. It's a very small investment for them. But I have to say that we're lucky because we don't have any feedback to give. Like we have some monthly reports to do, and sometimes, of course, we have internal meetings with the rest of Sony, and we show them what we do, blah blah. But we don't have much pressure from them or requests.
Mm-hmm. One quick thing. One of the things that I think is the biggest problem in academia is that if you get sick, the work just pile up, deadlines don't move, and you're just fucked when you get back from it because things are just there waiting for you. How is it there in at Sony?
Yeah. So if you're sick, you have days of you can take days off like in a normal company, of course, but the deadlines are still there. Like sometimes it's happening to have to work out of office hours because you have a deadline. Sometimes we apply to the same project in which we will apply in academia and the same grants or stuff like that. Because you still need the money from other types of calls or for new projects. It's not like you can just ask Sony and get it like this. So it's very similar.
I just wanted to ask if you know of any other like companies doing the same thing apart from Google, Amazon, and whatever, right? Because Sony, I mean, it's the first one. This lab is the first one working on cities. I mean, I don't know if Google is working on. I mean, I believe so, but in a more like Google-ish way, if you want, not looking into, I don't know, correlation with density and, I mean, proper city research stuff. So I was wondering if there are any, if you know about any other like companies doing similar, having similar like projects.
I mean, I know people that are in similar places, but I cannot comment, of course, on how free they are to do things and stuff. Like there is Facebook, I think, that had a social network analysis a research lab in London, probably, you know, and Nokia, the Nokia Bell Labs also were similar to this. In Paris. There are many actually. Like sometimes we don't even look so much for that.
Know.
Yeah, because there are like no-profit organization that actually work like a company, so you would get a full-time, a permanent contract if you look for it, but they're kind of hidden sometimes. But I mean, I would more compare us with a non-profit organization than another company that does research. So I think that there are some of these, and these are good places also to go to. Yeah, Spotify and Wikipedia. Yes.
You also need like a manager, like a PI, if you want, that is in there, right? As in Sony, there is Vittorio and other people. Yeah, you need.
Yeah. But like for example, like the Rome laboratory is different from the Japanese laboratories. Like even in the Japanese, the managers are also academics, but some of them also do some kind of more applied research that is not like completely close to academia. And we are very physics based. So yeah, it really depends on the single situation.
Okay, thank you. I think it was a very nice discussion, very nice seminar. And so we will see you in 2 more weeks for the last seminar of the year. And remember to spread the word for next year. All right. See you. Thanks, Matteo. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys. See you. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.